Okay, good morning everyone. Shalom Aleichem. Bruchim Haboam. We're continuing in Mishnah Berurah, Daf HaShavua. We are up to Siman Samach Vav. We're in the middle of Seif Daled, where the Mechaber said a Kohein who's called up in the middle of Kriya Shema. So you're in the middle of saying Shema, and all of a sudden, Ya Moed Elazar ben Aaron Kohein. Yeah. So some say you're mafsik, and some say you're not mafsik, and the halacha is you're not mafsik. Now, Mishnah Berurah said that for sure ben gula tefillah you don't go up even if they called you up, and certainly in Middle Shemona Esrei. Some say you're mafsik. Why would you be mafsik? Because you're even mafsik mimnei hakavod. Kol shekem mimnei kavod haTorah. And the Mishnah Berurah said, by the same token, even if they called it Yisrael, the Yisrael would take an aliyah. The only reason we're talking about a Kohein is for the Shita who says Einoi mafsik. That Shita holds even a Kohein Einoi mafsik. Why? It's not a bizayin Torah, because the reason you're not being mafsik is because you're in the middle of being oisik in Kriya Shema bercheseha. And even though you're a Kohein, we're not worried that people are going to question your lineage. Okay, so these are the two deos, and the conclusion of the Shulchan Aruch is halacha kidvarav. The conclusion of the Shulchan Aruch is that you are not mafsik. Let's start again from the beginning of the Mishnah Berurah. Halacha kidvarav. V'hachroinim kasvu dechayom nagim olam k'yesharim kama. That nowadays the minhag ha'olam is like the first yesharim. That what? That we are mafsik. That we do take the aliyah. V'afilu b'karu Yisrael. Even if they called up Yisrael, v'hu oimid be'emtza Kriya Shema is the middle of Shema. After nucha lahasig Yisrael achar, even though you could get a different Yisrael. Afal pikei noyagin shemafsikim mibnei kvad haTorah. The minhag is we're mafsik. Levad mu'oimid b'pasuk Shema Baruch Shem kvad malchus levad lo yasim emsan, unless you know the pasuk of Shema or Baruch Shem ele yigmarim v'achar kach yala. But you finish it and then you go up. Ve'ein l'shanois haminhag mipnei hamachloikes. We do not change the minhag out of dispute. In other words, the bottom line is, even though the Mechaber says halacha is that we are not mafsik, we are mafsik. We do take the aliyah. We do take the aliyah. Ach, im yuchal lamar l'sayim ad haperak yimar. If you could quickly finish up where you're saying to be be'emtza, to be bein haprakim, you should do so. Im eno yachal l'sayim ad haperak yisayim al kapanim lehechad l'sakin yana. At least try to get up to a new subject. But don't delay the tzibur because of this. Amnam lo yikra im chazan. Do not read it along with the chazan. In other words, normally when you get an aliyah, you read along with the chazan. Now, since you're be'emtza haperak, you should not read along. Even bein haprakim, Rav Shlomo Zalman says you should not read along. You should just be careful to hear from him. Hear the words of the Kriyas HaTorah. What if the guy makes a mistake and you need to correct him? So, Shal Sechuvas Leiv Chaim, I think that's Reb Chaim Falaji, he says scream at him. I guess without saying anything. You roar. That would go over well. Or take out a chumash and show him his mistake. Certainly, do not start making a mishaberach in the middle. What if in the middle of the mishaberach the chazan forgot his name and he asked, "No, what's your name?" According to everyone, you'd be allowed to answer mibnei hakavod. When you come back to Kriya Shema, you could go back to where you stopped off. Now, question. We've always been saying that if the chazan, if the gabbai comes to you in the middle of laning and asks you your name, you're not to answer. But here, the Mishnah Berurah says if you're be'emtza Kriya Shema, and you get called up for an aliyah, and now the chazan asks you for your name, you're allowed to answer Mibnei HaKavod. So, one thing we could ask is, when the Mishnah Berurah says you're allowed to respond Mibnei HaKavod, isn't that only going lefi the shita that you're allowed to answer Mibnei HaKavod? But we already said Bizman Hazeh we don't answer Mibnei HaKavod. We're not so courteous Bizman Hazeh. In other words, we don't greet anybody. We don't say anything even Mibnei HaKavod. So l'chayra, this allowance would no longer apply. Okay, in any event, when you go back later to Kriya Shema, ein tzarich lachzor rak lamakom shepasak. Afilu haya parsha aruka, even if it was a long parsha, v'sha al yedei zeh kedei ligmar kula, and you delayed in order to complete the whole Shema. V'chol zeh b'diavad shekvar karo, I said. This is all b'diavad that you already read the Shema. I'm sorry. So in other words, you're going back to the place that you were interrupted, even if it was a very long delay. What does the Mishnah Berurah mean? Afilu haya parsha aruka v'sha, meaning the aliyah you got. Let's say it was a very long aliyah. You got, the beginning of Kisisa. So now by this long aliyah, now you delayed the amount of time it takes to say the whole Shema. It's still not a hefsek. Now v'cholza b'diavad shekvar karos. This is all b'diavad. Al chelchila afilu oime bevirchas Kriya Shema. L'chatchila, even if you're only in the berachas Kriya Shema, kol shkem Kriya Shema atzma lo yikroseh. The chazan shouldn't call you. Afilu ein sham kohen elahu. Even if you're the only kohen. Even if you're the only kohen, even if the only kohen is the guy who's in the middle of Kriya Shema, you should, or berachas Kriya Shema, he should not be called up. The lekel lemechash v'zel lefkama dekivan shu oisib Kriya Shema. Rak yikru li Yisrael b'mekam. You should say Yamoid Shmerel ben Berel Yisrael b'mekam kohen. And it's not going to be a chash that it's a pagam for the first guy. He's in the middle of Shema. Umutu l'krois b'shmai v'yomer b'makom kohen. You could call his name. You could say makom kohen. V'yesh cholkin v'omerim degam b'zeh shach pagam l'kohen. Some disagree and they say even in this instance it's shayach that you're embarrassing the kohen. You're not embarrassing. You're creating suspicions of his status. The ena kol yodim shoyes of Krishma. Not everybody knows he's in the middle of Shema. V'nira deyesh l'smechel hakal l'kroisim hu omer b'vein haprakim. You could be soymech on the shita that it is permitted to call him if he's bein haprakim. V'yoyser tovim ein sham kohen elahu. The best thing is if he's the only kohen, sheilach beis hakneses kam shikru l'rishain, to step out of the shul. V'chein adin b'levi. Likewise, if a guy's the only levi. V'nira pashat ima sefer Torah munach ala shulchan. It's pashat. If the sefer Torah is on the bima. But you don't have a guy who could read it. Besides the guy who's in the middle of Kriya Shema and the brachos. Everybody would agree he could be mafsik because of kavod Torah. So the guy's in the middle of Shema. He's up to ve'ahavtayis Hashem lekacha. Say Balkare, he's the only Balkare. He gets up and he lanes. Why kavod Torah? What about, could you blow shofar in the middle of Kriya Shema? Chodesh Elul, you're the only guy who could blow. Maram Brisk says, you could. It's not worse than being Shalom B'Shalom Adam Nichbad. The Mishnah Berurah continues, Im benokel hu l'sayim l'metchila ad parak Yisayim. If it would be easy for him to conclude until the next chapter, he should. Gam yimne az asas milos hu hakorei b'shem hakruim sheyalu l'Torah mitam hefsek. He should refrain from being the guy who calls up the aliyos, meaning he shouldn't be the gabbai. If a guy's in the middle of Kriya Shema, he should avoid being the gabbai. Okay, Sif Hey. Ready? Ve'elu hein bein haprakim. The following are bein haprakim. Bein bracha l'rishayna l'shniya. Bein shniya l'shma. Right? Isn't that interesting? Between the second bracha and Shema, it's considered bein haprakim. Now, even though there's an opinion Right? The Shulchan Aruch says, "V'lo yane amin achar siyam haboicher b'amo yisrael b'yahava mishum dehava hefsek." The Mishabur explains, I'm in Siman Nun Tes now, in Sivkat and Chav Daled, that just like you're not be mafsik between a Devar Mitzvah and Hana and the Bracha, and the Ramah's opinion is that Haboicher b'amo Yisrael b'Yahava, we do answer Amen, because Birchas Kriya Shema is not like Birchas HaMitzvah. And we conclude, the Achronim say, that the Ramah is correct, that if you finished Birchas HaBoicher before the Shliach Tzibur, you should answer Amen. But l'chadchila, it's better to conclude b'shaveh with the Shliach Tzibur. Okay, so then it's interesting to me that the Mechaber, who says you should not answer Amen between Haboicher b'amo Yisrael b'Yahava and Shema, that means the Mechaber holds it's a Birchas HaMitzvah, he still holds Bein Shniya l'Shema is considered Bein HaPrakim. Right? That's a little bit of a chiddush. Well, what do you mean it's Bein HaPrakim? It's a Birchas HaMitzvah, you're not allowed to be mafsik there. Nah, it's only Birchas HaMitzvah that you don't answer Amen. But what, you could lane and you could answer people? Okay. Bein Shema lev'hayim Shemaya, Bein v'hayim Shemaya lev'ayomer, Aval Bein v'ayomer le'emes v'yatziv lo yafsik. So after you finish Hashem le'keichem, or even Hashem le'keichem emes, you should not be mafsik. Shelo yafsik bein Hashem le'emes. You're not mafsik between Hashem and emes. Elo yomer ani Hashem le'keichem emes. V'oz yafsik kedin be'emtza haparak. Then it has a din of not bein haprakim, but be'emtza haparak. Says Mishabur Sivkatan Chavzayin Bein HaPrakim Uvein HaPrakim the Arvis Gamkein Dinon Kamay B'Shachris. Bein HaPrakim of Arvis is like Shachris. So this is an interesting chiddush. Let's say you began the bracha, Baruch Atah, and you didn't say Hashem's name yet. Could you be mafsik? So the Eish Avram Buchan says you could be mafsik. Then you go back again and you say Baruch Atah Hashem. Fine. After Baruch Hu of Shachris and Arvis, before you start Birchas Kriya Shema, it is a din of not Bein HaPrakim, but Be'emtza HaParak. Because once you say Baruch Hu, you're supposed to begin immediately. V'ayin beber halacha. Okay. Lo yafsik. Why are you not mafsik between Hashem le'keichem and emes? Hatam mishum d'chsev Hashem le'kim emes lefikach ein lahafsik by v'u chamer afilu me'emtza parak. Being mafsik between Hashem le'keichem and the word emes is not just the emtza parak. It's more chamer than that. Shaloi lahafsik. You're not mafsik afilu b'shia ba'alma, even with a delay, even just with pausing. Elokeichem emes mashma she'en tzarich lamer yoser. It's mashma, all you have to say is Hashem elokeichem emes, and not more. V'yesh shesoivim dekiven deviyatziv hu gam kein lashoin emes ein lafsik ben emes leviyatziv. Meaning you're not supposed to be mafsik according to this between Hashem elokeichem emes v'yatziv. Uveber agra maskim la Shulchan Aruch. The Be'er Agra is maskim to the Shulchan Aruch. V'toiv lizar lechatchila. It is correct to be zahir lechatchila, not to be mafsik not only between Hashem le'keichem and emes, but and the word v'yatziv as well. Okay, we'll hold over here. We'll pick it up tomorrow in Sif Vav.
The first bracha is from right after Baruch Hu and still Yisrael Maris.
Yeah.
Then it's hard. That is hard to be Be'emtza.
Yeah.
He says so after Yisrael Maris and between that and Avarati, right?
Right.
This is the first one he mentions. Before the bracha, after Baruch Hu, before Baruch Atah.
What?
After Baruch Hu, before Baruch Atah Hashem of Yotzer Or.
That has a din of be'emtza haparak.
We said that earlier?
Where did we say that?
I don't remember.
I'll tell you. Siman Nun Daled Sivkatan Yud Gamal.
Here.
The Dirshu quotes it here.
Yeah.
Okay, have a good day. Shkayach.
Can I ask? You mentioned this, they talk about Kohein. There's a lot of answers that they cover that Kohein.
Recording.
Stop.
Listen, cover. He's about Kohein. Excuse me. There's a lot to go up. I'll cover that.
Yes.
He's the only